Hello, welcome back. Today we are going to be talking about rediscovering a sense of self-protection in our artist, the Artist Way workshop. And I want to start off with something a little different, and I'm going to start off with some poetry. I've always liked these two for different reasons, and it kind of made sense with this particular subject for this week. The first one's going to be Phenomenal Woman by Maya Angelou. Pretty women wonder where my secret lies. I'm not cute or built to suit a fashion model size. But when I start to tell them, and they think I'm telling lies, I say it's in the reach of my arms, the span of my hips, the stride of my step, the curl of my lips. I am a woman, phenomenal woman. That's me. I walk into a room just as cool as you please, and to a man, the fellows stand, fall down on their knees. Then they swarm around me, a hive of honeybees. I say it's the fire in my eyes, and the flash of my teeth, the swing in my waist, and the joy in my feet. I am a woman, phenomenal woman. That's me. Men themselves have wondered what they see in me. They try so much, but they can't touch my inner mystery. When I try to show them, they say they still can't see. I say it's in the arch of my back, the sun of my smile, the ride of my breasts, the grace of my style. I am a woman, phenomenal woman. That's me. Now you understand just why my head's not bowed. I don't shout or jump about or have to talk real loud. When you see me passing, it ought to make you proud. I say it's in the click of my heels, the bend of my hair, the palm of my hand, the need for my care. 'Cause I'm a woman, phenomenal woman. That's me. I always liked that poem. And the second one is by Marianne Williamson, and it's called Our Deepest Fear. Our deepest fear is not that we are inadequate. Our deepest fear is that we are powerful beyond measure. It is our light, not our darkness, that most frightens us. We ask ourselves, who am I to be brilliant, gorgeous, talented, fabulous? Actually, who are you not to be? You are a child of God. Your playing small does not serve the world. There is nothing enlightened about shrinking so that other people won't feel insecure around you. We are all meant to shine, as children do. We were born to make manifest the glory of God that is within us. It's not just in some of us, it's in every one. And as we let our own light shine, we unconsciously give other people permission to do the same. As we are liberated from our own fear, our presence automatically liberates others. Now, I chose those two poems because I thought this particular week was really interesting because it was talking a lot about how we block ourselves based off of some of these fears. And what I always loved about Maya Angelou's poem is that she always had this, like, I don't have to be a perfect thing, but what's in me makes me. And that light that's in me is what I'm shining out to others. And that sometimes we are afraid to show that light and shine that light. And so what we have been working on throughout these weeks are designed to be able to help us reconnect with that, what that is, that joy that we felt as children, and being creative and expressing ourselves and just being connected with God and recognizing that that light is what he's trying to get us to go towards, and to be able to share that with others. And by sharing that with others, we also allow them permission to shine as well, and that we can see that light in each one of us. And hopefully, as we continue on our path and in our lives, we'll be able to also help lift others into that light as well, and to let them recognize the light in themselves. So what this week she was talking about here was going into addressing toxic patterns that we do, that we cling to, that block our creative flow, because creativity is a spiritual issue. Many of the perils we experience are spiritual in nature. So in fact, she says that creativity is God energy flowing through us. It is shaped by us, like light flowing through a crystal prism. When we are clear about who we are and what we are doing, the energy flows freely. And we experience no strain, but when we resist is when the energy might show us, or resist what that energy might show us, where it might lead us or take us. We will experience the feeling of being shaky, maybe out of control, feeling that sometimes will cause us to shut down that flow. We will stop doing things that we know is good for us. We will stop doing the pages. We'll stop taking our artist dates. We will stop allowing ourselves to have some fun and joy and making that time to do it because, oh, it's a waste, or what am I doing? I got to do this. And so we will find ways to prevent ourselves from creating and from what we feel God is leading us towards, because it does feel, because you have to trust God. It's a leap of faith. And it's trusting that God is leading us in a direction that is good for us. But sometimes we are afraid of what that might be, what that might look like in our lives. And so we will shut it down, and we'll do it in various ways. Sometimes we'll block the flow through other different toxic patterns, like eating, sugar, alcohol, drugs, sex, different things that make that people will go towards to prevent us from experiencing the energy, the positive energy, and the flow of creativity. But other things that we'll do is by overwork, being too busy to do things. I'm just too busy. I can't do it. I can't find the time to do it. There's no way I'll be able to find the time to do it. And so sometimes, I think for most of us, we can pretty much name what our drug of choice is when it comes to blocking ourselves, from preventing ourselves from doing things. We're going to know whether or not it is, whether we choose sugar or whether we choose alcohol, or whether it is overwork, alcoholism or workaholism, and just being so busy that you don't have time to be creative, and you don't have time for that in your life. And maybe one day you'll be able to get to that, but it's just not worth it right now. So she continues to address the concepts of workaholism, drought, fame, and competition as some of our worst toxic patterns that we adopt as we're going through this recovery. And every week she addresses that, about how sometimes we'll stop ourselves, what causes us to stop ourselves, the things that we're doing that prevents us. One of the things that we try to do, those U-turns, last week was about U-turns and creating U-turns that turn us back around. We might be getting somewhere and then, we'll turn back around. We'll do that a U-turn a few times until we learn the lesson, right? But these are the things that she discovered is like even more, like one of the most toxic ones that are out there. She explains that in order to recover our creativity, we must learn to see workaholism as a block, not a building block. And that sometimes we might think that work is good and we're trying to, but it can go too far, right? So we need to find a way, and it's not as easy with workaholism, because like with alcoholism, you just cut out alcohol, right? It's not easy, but the concept is that you cut out alcohol. But workaholism is you have to cut out overwork. And how do you define what that means to you in your life? And how is that going to work with everything else that you already know and you're comfortable with, and what gives you that sense of control? And so it makes it a lot more difficult for many people who use workaholism and that overwork and that busyness to, prevent the flow from occurring, and at least slowing it down. And so the things that she talks about is really, especially, but the thing to say is that workaholism is also because workaholics find work to be synonymous with worth and how worthy they are. And so it's very difficult for them to let go of even a little part of that overwork. Like, and they'll take it back, they'll take it back. Because it's a very difficult thing. It's what they identify with, and it does give them that sense of worth. And so all of a sudden you're asking them to do something else. It makes them very uncomfortable. And that is a hard task. But all of these things that she suggests is to address by protecting ourselves, and protecting ourselves through doing these activities. Protecting ourselves, and also self-loving, providing that for ourselves, to be able to say that we are able to accept who we are, and love who we are, and be able to provide things that will nurture us and nurture our development and give us that protection, so that we don't then do this to ourselves or let others do that to us. A drought will also occur in everybody's lives. We'll go through dry seasons where things just are we just feel kind of lifeless. What's the things that normally give us joy does no longer get there. Everything seems a little bit mechanical. And we tend to have a little bit of problem with that. And so what happens, though, when we're going through a natural drought season, is we sometimes then withdraw, and we stop doing the things that we normally do, or we should be doing. That's when we really need to make sure that we are doing our pages, and that we're doing the artist states. And even if it's just showing up and doing them day in, day out, it will help us get through that period. Because drought, like every other season, will come to an end. And so the more that we work our pages, the more that we work through it and show up for ourselves, it offers us clarity and charity. That charity that we give to ourselves and to others, as recognizing that there's times when it's not easy, and that we just have to kind of do the work. And the next thing she talks about is fame. Fame, on the other hand, is a poison of our ego. And it encourages us to believe that if it hasn't happened yet, it's not going to happen. And that fame is not the same as success. Fame is the desire to attain it, the desire to hold on to it, can produce a continuous feeling of lacking, and placing our focus on what it's doing versus becoming a famous person, becoming a grand, acknowledged, awarded, getting credit for the work that you're doing, praise. All of those things are what the fame offers us. So although our work is there, and the satisfaction of doing the work is there, the fame offers those little pieces of credit and things, acknowledgement and accolades, and that desire to keep having that, or to provide for that, is what kind of changes our focus. And changes the focus away from the process and the work itself and the satisfaction of doing the work, to more of placing it on that desire to keep it, right? To keep the fame, to get that. And so you're constantly driven by that versus what the work really gives you. And so it erodes at our joy. It creates jealousy. It creates jealousy in what others accomplish. It creates jealousy in what others may be able to do and what you seemingly can't. And that does also create a lot of judgment and criticism, both of others and of ourselves. And that what it is that we are really looking for when we're trying to obtain fame is self-approval. We really want the approval, but we really needing the self-approval. We need like a way to develop and sense that self-protection, working on improving ourselves and spoiling ourselves with the small things, small pleasures, things like play, things like the fun, things like these artist dates, things that allow us to nurture that creative side of us, but for the joy of it, not for the fame of it, not because it has to be a Picasso or that the work has to be produced to go into this gallery. And that may be what you could be doing, but the goal is to really be proud of what you are able to do for yourself, and allowing that time and that expression to have, and to be able to, find that the pleasures, those simple pleasures. We need to remind ourselves that what we are afraid of when we don't get credit or fame is that we won't be loved, that we won't be loved as artists, and that we won't be loved as people. And that rejection is a big factor in a lot of this, that we're afraid that people won't love us if we're not brilliant. and that somehow it may stop us from trying certain things. So the solution she also brings up is that fear is concrete. small, or the solution to this fear is to provide concrete, small, loving actions that are consciously, consistently, and creatively nurturing our inner artists. And so we need to really make sure that we're focused on nurturing our inner artists, really being focused on that self-love, that taking the time and protecting that time and protecting ourselves as we're going through this, so that we're able to really accomplish and get past some of those fears, and also to and it takes away the power of those blocks. The blocks that we are naturally tended to do will eventually lose its strength, and we will recognize it for what it is, and we'll be able to work through that a little bit more effectively, so that we don't continually do the same things to block our creative flow. The next thing she addresses is competition. She says that competition lies at the root of much creative blockage, and the desire to be better than or to win can choke off the simple desire to just be. It can lead us away from our own voices, our own choices, into a game that centers outside of ourselves, outside of our sphere of influence, and asks us to define our own creativity in terms of someone else's. It causes judgment, snap decisions, harsh criticisms of ourselves and others, and into any work that is deemed not good enough or is not the best. So the solution here is to learn also to seek self-approval, and to not be seeking it or needing it from others. So remember to show up for this week is the win that matters. Being here this week, doing these types of activities, spending time on your pages, allowing yourself time to see the joy in the nature walk, and finding joy and looking and listening to the birds at the park, or the kids laughing as they're playing, or the colors that you see in the night sky when you go outside and really enjoy the nature of what's out there around us, and the little things that really are miracles and magic in our daily lives. We need to make sure that we're taking that time to recognize it. And that she said that is the major thing to focus on, and that those, as we continue to cultivate these different exercises and these different projects and things that we're doing, it'll help us not only through our recovery as creatives, but also in our everyday lives, and just as people, and accepting ourselves as a person, but let alone as an artist or a creative person. She had a lot of good tasks in this week. She always does, but this one I thought was really kind of essential, like kind of getting at some of the things that you may not realize you're doing even for your blocks, but you know, if you haven't quite recognized that, it'll help you also on how to maybe make it less powerful over your life, so that it doesn't take over and become the big blockades and toxic patterns that we have. So I suggest working on at least 3 of these tasks this week. Continue to do your pages and different things, but really try to just find 3 that you find interesting, and just see where it might lead you, and create in your journals, and see what it might also allow you to kind of express and find out, maybe go a little deeper on some of those things. And of course, just keep showing up. That is our win. So we'll be working on dream catchers in a 2-part project. We'll start off with the initial dream catcher, and then next week we'll continue with chapter 11, but the next part, it would be the second part of the dream catcher, which will be the feathers to the dream catcher. So we'll be able to complete the entire dream catcher with the next lesson. So in just a few minutes, we'll get started. Thank you. Hello, welcome back. And we're going to be getting our dream catcher activity for our artist date today, and I'm excited about it. My mom used to do macrame way back in the day when I was a little young. I remember her setting it up in the garage and have these big elaborate projects that would be going on, and I always thought it was a lot of fun to do, and haven't done it for many years. When it came time to picking out an activity, I thought the dream catcher made sense with our activity, thinking about like capturing the negative, keeping the positive, and allowing us to be able to gather some peace in our lives, but also the dream catcher as a representative of that. And so I thought it'd be a fun project. The difficulty is I haven't done it for so long, and so I was trying to figure out from all the tutorials on Pinterest and in the internet and YouTube, trying to find one that was an easier way to get started. And they are, I found one that looks interesting. That's why I wanted to do it in 2 parts. But I'm also kind of doing my own version of it because I didn't quite have or couldn't find the right, or at least the same suggested materials. And I thought maybe a lot of you might also kind of be doing the same thing, so we'll just work through it together. So what I've decided is, I'm going to show you this, move it down. All right, so typically with the macrame type style, it's going to be a little bit thicker cording, a little bit more, it's like more of a cotton cord that you'll see this cording. It's a little thicker. And I just couldn't find the right colors. So I decided to go with the yarn. So I'm doing yarn with these, and I also kind of thought it'd be good with the feathers. So I'm picking these nice purple selections. I'm not entirely sure which ones I want to go with, and I also found this pretty purple hoop that I'm going to work with for the beginning. You can use any one of these kinds of hoops, any size that you want, and it's just a matter of what you're interested in making with this project. So, and then of course we'll need your scissors and some type of measuring. It doesn't have to be anything particular. You could just use the edge of your counter or your table, and that way you have a way of measuring a consistent amount. But what we'll first be starting off with is we'll go with the whatever cording you decided to use, and we'll cut out 10 at least. The suggestion was 4 yards. I'm gonna go with mine a little shorter, so I'm gonna go with maybe 2. It depends on what I'm getting here, how much I get out of this one. And I am going to use my little measuring tape here to cut that. So we'll get started here in just a second. There it is. So for many of you, you can use the edge, table, whatever you feel comfortable, and allow yourself to be able to kind of experiment. I made myself a little knot, as usual. Starting off this way. I snagged it. All right, so we're gonna go 1, and then we're gonna double it up and do 2 of those. Essentially in half. Now once you cut the first one, you can use that one as your measure, or you can decide how you want to do the rest. It's really what feels more comfortable to you. And then get yourself 10 of these. So what I did here is begin the process. So we cut out the 10 cords for this particular beginning of the project, and it's very hard for me to be able to show you this, so I'm trying to figure out how to do this way. I put this rubber band here as the center. This will not be something that you will need in the future, but it's to help me to see it and help you see the difference as well, since I'm using the same basic colors. And so I started with on both sides. You're going to have 5 on both sides, and you're going to get your cord that you cut, essentially have it in half, They call it a lark's head knot, I believe. I'm not entirely confident in that, but this is what I remember on how to make it. So you get your cord, you put it in half, so you fold it, and then you put it underneath the loop, and then you essentially just pull and string it through. So you string it through just like your little there, and then all of a sudden you have yourself a little head knot. And then you just slide it over so that it's as tight as it can be. Try to keep consistency in your knots. That way everything kind of goes together. But that's the idea behind it. And you just continue that process as we continue this, and then we'll begin the rest of it in a little bit. But this way we can begin the first color of this pattern. Again, go underneath, put the two together, and then just string it through. And again, depending on the cording you have, if it's thicker, it may be a little bit easier. If you have more space, that may be also a factor in where you're able to work. It's been a little bit of a challenge trying to find the right space for this, but I think this will work. String it through, slide it down, and then just keep pulling to make sure you got the right tension and consistency in it. And then you should be able to have both sides done in just a second. I'm excited about this. Now there's all kinds of stuff I was looking at when I was thinking about doing these dream catchers. I thought about the sun catcher. I thought about maybe doing a combination of a sun and dream catcher, even a wind chime, but I decided to go with the dream catcher for this project. But there was so much online to try. So when you start thinking about like what you like the most, what you want to try to do again, that may be one of those things to consider, and maybe even going and branching off and doing something a little more intricate. I saw some Tree of Life ones that looked really cool, but again, it's been such a long time that I think it's best that I start off on a little easier project for everybody, and then that way we can get through it together. But these are probably the most fun kinds of projects to enjoy. Nothing too strenuous. I always liked the macrame because it was a little bit, you didn't have to use a needle to do your projects all the time. You could, but you didn't have to. And that gave me a little bit more confidence in creating things with my hands and the fibers. But I didn't know, I hadn't seen macrame around for, just maybe pieces, but nothing really big. But when I was looking for these projects, I began to see a ton of macrame art and macrame different projects to use, and also materials that are out there right now. So if you are remotely interested, you can find yourself, and they were reasonably priced, in comparison to other projects. So you didn't have to necessarily invest a ton of money to get started, but you could produce some really neat projects. So if you definitely like more fiber work and working with your hands a little bit more like this, I would suggest you try to do and branch out and try a few more. I found a ton of tutorials on both YouTube and on Pinterest, so I would definitely check those out, kind of see what you might be able to find there. But there were some fun ones for sure. Okay, now that I have these all together, these will be the first color, and we're just going to start with this one first, and then we'll add the other color as we finish this one. And then what we're going to be doing here is trying to keep it, again, we'll make it tighter so that you know, but we'll start from the center and we'll work our way out, creating a pattern that we will continue to go through with all of these, with this particular color. We want it to be the inner. You're always working with 2 pieces of yarn at a time, or thread, or cording, however you want to use the term. You're always working with that from the inside and moving out, and you're always working with 2 pieces at a time. So what you want to do is you always want your left to be over your right. So left side, right side. And these two are going to be the first ones that we'll be working with. So you'll have left over right. And then you'll want this to come over here to this side. And you want this then to go underneath the hoop. Again, it's a little bit hard to do it like this on the ground, on this area. You're going to wrap it around once. Create a little tension there. And then you're going to go from this side, over it, and through. And that's that simple. And then you're going to do the same thing on this side. It's going to go underneath the hoop. So underneath the hoop. Okay, you see that? There you go. And then you're going to wrap it around once. And then you're going to come back over here, go on top, and let it through. So then you make that tight, make that one tight, and then you got yourself the first one. And then we're going to continue that process all the way through. So we'll do the same thing with this interior one. We're going to go left over right. So we're going to grab those two pieces of yarn, pull that one down, pull this one over, so you can see how that works. And then this one's going to go on here. It's going to go, it's going to go underneath the hoop, goes around, and then over and through. And then this one does the same. It's gonna go. Okay, so I just went ahead and took out the band-aid that was separating the two sides. I just wanted it to kind of help me see both sides. And then I'm continuing with the process, and we're going to do the same thing all the way through. Again, the left side over the right side, and we're going to continue to go underneath the loop, and then we're going to, whoa, taking it all with me, and then wrap it around, under, over, and then around and through. Doesn't want to come for me. There you go. Oops. There we go. And through. The through part didn't happen. There you go. I'm going to continue that process with these as well. So you'll see them tightening up. Make sure you got a nice tight tension, because we'll start doing more as we go. We're going to continue that process here. So you're going to go underneath, over, and then around and through. I'm going to tighten each one of them. Make sure you got a nice tension. And then you see how that continues all the way through. So the same thing here. Going to have left on top of right. Now you can see how the pattern's starting to develop. You're going to be able to see the process becoming a little bit more clear. Now what's kind of neat about this is just a real simple beginning pattern, but as you know, if you want to continue doing more of these, or you'll see these being created or made, you'll notice that what's really neat is that you can start to, if you wanted to, like we did the jewelry, you can even bead on these if you wanted to before you did some of the knots on the end. You could do you could add beading now, or you can add beading and with like hot glue and stuff later. So there's a lot of things you can do. If you wanted to add more like the sun catcher or crystals or glass or something, you could do that as well. It makes it really fun. to be able to have some options for you in your creating. And just like with the collage, you just keep adding embellishments, and that always helps to kind of just express yourself a little more and allow yourself to really see how the process works. And I keep finding myself moving over, so I apologize for that. We'll do the next, I'll bring this one down. I'm trying to separate them out because I don't have a lot of space. So I'll move this one over, this one down, one here. But I like that it can still work on these things even if you don't have a lot of space. So you just have to kind of figure out what's the next best thing that you can do and figure out how to make that happen. So we're doing again left over right. We're creating that section there so you can see. Now one of the things is because I'm using a much thinner cording than what you might see. And so sometimes that can cause you to maybe not have as much. So if you need to have or get more or want to add more to the process, you're able to do that as well. I forgot the through part. Here we go. It depends also on the size of your hoop. You know, how much you're going to be able to, or need to cover the ground you want to cover, how much of a pattern you want to create. And then that way you can kind of see how that works and what works for you. Again, tying that up as much as you can. Have a nice increased tension. And you'll start to see how that pattern emerges. And it's going to be able to create a nice center there with the first color. And then we'll just keep adding the colors as we go along with this pattern. Oops. One first, then. All right. And then, like I said, this is a two-part project, and so we'll be able to start to, we'll add the feathers next week. So we'll be doing the same type of colors that you had before, so make sure that you have enough of your cording so that we can continue. And then you're going to need a comb to help you to finish the feathers once we get to that point. I'll explain, of course, later, but that will be part of it. So you'll need a comb as well to create our feather, to complete our project. It goes underneath. And then we will be going and adding another color. So when we get ready for that next color, that's when we'll have a little bit more of an opposite effect on our pattern. What I find interesting about these is that it really is nice to just see how it emerges as you're going through. It's a little relaxing, of course. Any type thing with sewing and everything it might seem is like or yarn, crocheting, knitting. It's very relaxing and comforting. There's something about the process that really does help you to just enjoy in the pattern itself. All right, we're almost there. Just one more set to go. And you just keep pulling to get that tension nice and tight so you can really create the look there that you're looking for. You can spread it out more or just make it a tighter pattern. And that'll help as far as like how you feel, what you want there. But then you'll be able to find what works best for you. This is our last set, so we're going to do continue the inside, left over right. This one comes, it's going to be down again. But as you can see, we're already starting to make progress on our dream catcher, and then we'll be able to see how the pattern emerges, and eventually we'll be able to start to see the rest of it come to shape. This is our last set. Ooh. Just keep pulling, making it a little tighter. So there is the first color of the pattern that we're going to be doing, and then we'll be selecting the next color for the next piece. I am going to go with the darker one next, so I'm going to start cutting same sized as I did the first one, and then I'll begin and start that one as well. Okay, so what I've done is I went ahead and cut the next two colors that I'm planning to use for this dream catcher, and I did the same exact length, and I did the same cut, so 10 each. And now I'm beginning to do, went ahead and did this side, so you can see we'll be working with one color at a time. So we'll be working with the purple. I wanted to make sure that we went over that so you can see the process again. We're going to do exactly the same as we did with the first one. You create that loop, attach them just like we did before, use the loop, and create that little knot. Set it up that way. And then here we got this one. And now what we do from here to create the next pattern with this color is we're now going to set it behind. So here we had it a little bit, but now we're going to move these behind it. So it's underneath that first color. And we're going to set that behind, but we're going to do exactly the same thing. We're just going to begin from the middle using the next color. So again, the same scenario. We're going to go from the interior, and we're working with two strands at a time, and you're going to do left over right. So we're going to pull that first set out so you can see it. There you go. So again, it's going to be left over right. Same scenario here. I'm going to pull that string out. Both strings first. There you go. So then we're going to have left over right. Okay, so what I've done is I went ahead and cut the next two colors that I'm planning to use for this dream catcher, and I did the same exact length, and I did the same cut, so 10 each. And now I'm beginning to do. Went ahead and did this side, so you can see we'll be working with one color at a time. So we'll be working with the purple. I wanted to make sure that we went over that so you can see the process again. We're going to do exactly the same as we did with the first one. You create that loop, attach them just like we did before, use the loop, and create that little knot. Set it up that way. And then here we got this one. And now what we do from here to create the next pattern with this color is we're now going to set it behind. So here we had it a little bit, but now we're going to move these behind it. So it's underneath that first color. And we're going to set that behind, but we're going to do exactly the same thing. We're just going to begin from the middle using the next color. So again, the same scenario. We're going to go from the interior, and we're working with two strands at a time, and you're going to do left over right. So we're going to pull that first set out so you can see it. There you go. So again, it's going to be left over right. Same scenario here. I'm going to pull that string out. Both strings first. There you go. So then we're going to have left over right. You're still doing, so I want to just demonstrate left over right from the interior one, but you're still doing the same process. So you're still underneath the hoop, and you're going to do the loop again, and then you're going to go over and through. And in the same scenario, you're going to make it as tight and taut as you can from underneath. And you do the same thing on this side. Underneath the hoop, loop it, and then come through. Again, try to create that tautness so you can see that pattern working, and it comes a little bit better for your dream catcher in the end. Then we're going to go left over right again from underneath. Just want to make sure you're picking the right one. Well, there you go. That's it. And again, left over right. You're going to go underneath the hoop. Loop. And then over and through. So this way you're creating the same pattern, but you're going to be creating with the different colors, doing the same process. But as we go through this, I'm going to demonstrate just how interesting the pattern is going to be. And then we'll just go back and forth this way while you finish that color. Again, working one color at a time. It's just a little cumbersome the way I have it right now. There we go. So again, left over right, it goes underneath the hoop, around, around and through. So we have left over right, under the hoop, around, and through. Left over right. So we're almost to the end of the second color. I'm going to finish this one off, do the loop, and then we'll go over what the pattern that's emerging, so you can see how that's working for your pattern and the dream catcher that we're creating for you today. Again, trying to create that tension so it's nice and tight. And it allows you to have a little more control with the hoop itself. And then as you go, you'll discover that you can move. We've been keeping it really tight to create the pattern right now, and it's a little easier to maneuver the threads. But you can see the pattern that's been emerging here. You can move this around a little bit to spread a little further if you want. Create a little wider pattern, a little tighter pattern. It's really up to you. But you can see how it's been emerging. So you have one side double and then the other side. So you can create that with just the different colored choices for each one. I went ahead and started a third color here to be able to get that next. I'm only going to do 3 on this for this. So I'm going to do 3 different feathers, and I'll have the 3 different colors for this particular one. But feel free to do what you feel or what pattern you want to use with the colors, and do the same type of thing with your dream catcher. So we'll continue the same process, same length of cord, and we'll continue to do the next color if you want, which one to choose to do so, or if you feel good with this one. You can decide how full you want it and how wide you want your pattern to be, but that's basically what we're trying to produce today. Next week we'll be doing the feathers that go along with it. So once you've finished whatever your pattern is and how many you want to do, and then just set it aside and be prepared that next week we're going to finish the dream catcher, but we'll finish it with creating feathers that will go along with this, using the same colored yarns and in the same, or maybe depending on the pattern you want to choose, and we'll create the feathers that will hang from our dream catcher. Thank you, and I'll see you next week. We're going to be covering chapter 11, and we're getting close to the end. It's kind of crazy to believe that we're almost there. And I want to be able to celebrate the last class with a painting. So just start thinking about that canvas painting, getting your brushes and stuff ready so that we can have some fun with that as well. So I look forward to it and forward to seeing what you create, and have a good week.